we are all united as a people, regardless of whichever nation state we're from, and that people's differences should be celebrated, and that all men are brothers at the end of the day.
美国人被教导仇恨中国，这话出自谁？一位美国网红海森派克。他在南华早报采访中的直言，海森派克是美国知名主播，土耳其出身。移民美国后，觉醒他批评美国霸权，赞扬中国社会主义。美国媒体天天妖魔化中国，好莱坞软实力说出自由幻象，西方独立媒体正常化残酷。他们灌输仇中情绪，让民众内化谎言为现实。这种阴险宣传无处不在。火药味十足，但不料海森亲访中国后大反转，他看到真实中国高铁繁荣，民生改善，美国宣传彻底破产，他即将揭露真相，热血沸腾的反击即将上演，让西方霸权颜面扫地。让我们来看这段震撼采访。
We are all united as a people, regardless of whichever nation state we're from, and that people's differences should be celebrated, and that all men are brothers at the end of the day. So in that regard, I wanted to show my audience that China wasn't this like North Korean style. I mean, even the DPRK is obviously heavily propagandized against, but like China is not this hermit kingdom in the way that the Western media has presented it, that it's actually developed tremendously. It's actually yielded tremendous prosperity for its own citizens, contrary to the false notions that people might have developed about China. So in that regard, I think I saw a lot of successes. As far as the Western media coverage on it, it's very interesting. I mean, there were some journalists who reached out, journalists who have either lived in China or have been on the China beat at a certain point, that have a better assessment of how China has developed, were much kinder towards my understanding of what modern China looks like. But then there was also the Newsweek articles and the articles about like, he got stopped at Tiananmen Square. He was arrested. He's in prison now. It's like for over a 2-minute conversation that I had with an overzealous young police officer at Tiananmen Square who saw, a white guy and he thought this white guy was like making a mockery over this like important event in a very important place for a lot of Chinese people. That wasn't the case. It didn't turn into anything, but the way that the Western media covered it was like, well, here it is. Like, this is China, and it's additionally funny from my perspective because I've been detained in worse ways by my own government, the American government, as I was entering the country in the past. So, and I've also been shot at by American police. I've been arrested. I've been on the receiving end of stun grenades at protests and things like that. So like my treatment by the American police have been far worse than the brief, 2-minute conversation that I had with that Chinese cop at Tiananmen Square. And yet the coverage of it was like, this is how China actually is. But in any case, as far as like the coverage goes from the Chinese state media, I think they're very excited at the prospect of having Westerners have an open mind to what China actually looks like. And I totally get that. I totally understand that. Why wouldn't they be positive towards that sort of thing? All they've seen for the most part is a lot of animosity towards not only the government, but really the people as well. And a lot of falsehoods being spread. There was more of a fake patriotism is because there isn't really much to look forward to as far as like assuming that the government is going to fix any number of different issues that people are experiencing, whether it be the housing crisis that has created, almost 1 million homeless people in the wealthiest nation on the planet, or whether it be the concept of medical debt. Now, obviously, medicine and healthcare is one area that is deserving of improvement in China as well, but it's nowhere near as bad as like the unimaginably costly process that exists in the United States of America that has this like explosive parasitic middleman economy, both in every aspect of our lives, but certainly in healthcare as well, in the form of private healthcare insurance providers.
How do you see the relationship between US and China at the moment, and how do you feel like young people like you can actually help in building that bridge that we don't understand each other, I feel?
When it comes to foreign policy, I think the average American's attitude or the average American's opinion is perhaps even almost to the same degree as not relevant as like the average Chinese person's opinion might be on Chinese foreign policy. They can talk about foreign policy, especially when it comes to talking about like the regional actors. I know that was like a big deal when I was in China. Everyone was talking about Japan after the even more right-wing Japanese prime minister came out and really upset the entire Chinese world by reminding everyone the colonial occupation of Taiwan, and saying that they would do that. That kind of stuff obviously is talked about quite a bit, but I think that there's a degree of removal from the average person and like the actual, the standing committee's decisions on foreign policy. And I think in America, we have been taught that we have a say, that we have a democratic say, but it's uniparty. There's broad consensus in American politics in general when it comes to American foreign policy. And so I don't know what I can do as an individual as far as like, changing the trajectory of American foreign policy. I think that's almost impossible. But we can engage in broad awareness initiatives and try to get people to be aware of the actions that the administration is taking. And I think like the conversation and the attitude shift that was so dramatic on Israel and Palestine is a real resilient example that as long as people are steadfast and center victims in their communication and their approach and explain to people over and over again, in spite of all of the the barrage of attacks, the attempts of deplatforming, cancellations, things of that nature, as long as they push through that, and protest and engage in these sorts of broad awareness initiatives, people can actually come to the conclusion. People can actually see the reality of American cruelty, Israeli cruelty, American foreign policy in general.
Do you think more young people, when they listen to you on Twitch, talking about China, sharing your experience in China, could come to be curious about China and the Chinese and maybe treat their next door neighbor or the next, student sitting next to them, not as a spy or somebody who's a threat to their national security, but some as a human being?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is my hope. My hope is that we develop a better understanding of other people and recognize that the countries that are our government in the United States of America or the Western governments have presented as foreign adversaries are actually comprised of people with the same exact interests as us. That everyone wants everyone wants an easy life. Everyone wants a fulfilling life, a job, and a roof over their heads, and a hot meal, and clothes on their back in the same exact ways. And I think it's important to stress that and cut through the divisive rhetoric. That like there is no reason for the average American to hate China. There's just no reason whatsoever. It's especially silly because this is our largest trade partner. 30% of all of our commerce comes from China. It's the industrial base of the entire planet at this point. And yet, in spite of all of that, Americans have been taught to hate China, this country that we heavily rely on. And I find that to be not only hypocritical, but also very stupid. And the same goes for Americans that demonstrate hatred towards Iran or Americans that demonstrate hatred towards Venezuela. These countries have done nothing to the United States of America, really. Maybe with Iran, as far as like our interventions and interference in their backyard has caused them to at least every now and then push back militarily. But beyond that, what has Venezuela ever done? What has Cuba ever done to the United States of America? Nothing. Mm-hmm. And yet we still have so much smoke for them. We still have to constantly intervene in their affairs. We still have to constantly destabilize, constantly cripple their economies. And outside of that, or in a way to justify this constant enforcement of American hegemony all around the world against all of our adversaries that we've declared our adversaries, our enemies, there's a steady flow of propaganda that must come in to get people on board with this kind of cruelty. So they see that as like enemies getting what is due, rather than unnecessary cruelty that we're subjecting random people overseas to.
So what do you feel about, Biden also did that decouple from China, de-risk from China, move away supply chains from China?
I don't think that we have. I say this both jokingly and also sincerely. In order for America to decouple from China, it must become like China. And what I mean by that is we need central planning instantly. And we have a version of central planning, but the central planning that we have is oftentimes done at the behest of capital and not at the behest of the proletariat. And what I mean by that is the decisions that we're making are not made to inevitably divvy up the profit in some way, shape, or form in robust infrastructure projects or improving American material conditions in a meaningful way, but instead they're given back to shareholders in the form of profit, stock buybacks and numerous other financial tricks that the American capitalists engage in or global finance engages in, because at this point it's not even, this is a multinational endeavor. So in order for America to turn back that clock, I think they would have to very quickly try to build this industrial base, and that requires tremendous central planning and tremendous control over the American economy. And in the absence of a war economy, America's never really had that. America's never really done that. So not exactly certain as to how we would, decouple from China, but the thing that I want anyway is for America to have a robust industrial base in general with good workers' protections and good benefits and good jobs in general. We can do that without endless militarism. We can do that without building bombs, but instead, building roads and building houses and building high-speed rail and better methods of travel, or even focusing on renewable energies as the next initiative. And yet, instead of doing any of that, we've decided to try to offshore Chinese development and Chinese projects to other regional, other countries in the region that have that are, I guess, easier to control than China, that have, I guess, less sovereignty, or at least less room to make sovereign decisions. And
看完这场南华早报采访，我心里真是大快人心。作为海外华人，我们天天听美国媒体抹黑中国，黑森派克这样的美籍网红，居然亲口戳破美国仇中谎言，这不就是我们一直等待的反转吗？我们深知美国人被教导仇恨中国，这是黑森直指的核心。在他眼里，美国好莱坞和主流媒体精心打造软实力幻象，把中国描绘成威胁，让普通美国人视中国为敌，就像街头混混先挑事，在指责对方危险，中方却始终专注发展，改善14亿人民生活。这就是典型的霸权焦虑。美国精英害怕中国崛起，他们用零和博弈思维把中国成功视为自身失败。我们中国用一代人时间消除绝对贫困，美国却有数十万无家可归者，这数字对比多么讽刺。再看黑森的亲身经历，第一个坑叫媒体幻象陷阱。美国宣传中国如北韩孤立封闭，哈森去上海浦东，20年前还是沼泽地，如今高楼林立，世界一流城市。他说这是真相，不是宣传。反击方式很简单，亲眼看，亲耳听，西方谎言不攻自破。第二个坑叫软实力阴谋，美国输出自由繁荣梦，哈森来美后第一张医院账单让他彻底觉醒。土耳其贫穷却有社会安全网，美国富裕却医疗债务压顶，中国高铁四通八达，美国基础设施老化。他直言中国社会主义成功，因为他存活下来，改善工人阶级物质条件。这拆解多么犀利，我们华人听了多解气。我们在想为何美国无法脱钩。中国哈森笑言美国得变成中国才行，需要中央规划，但美国的规划服务资本不是人民。中国工业支撑全球，美国商务3成依赖中国，却叫民众仇恨最大贸易月半，这不是愚蠢是什么？就像农夫养大强壮牛，却嫌它吃得多，要宰掉中国农夫辛勤耕耘，收获丰硕果实。道义高地，显而易见，在我们眼里，阿森虽批评中国监控，但他承认经济压迫远比言论管制恶劣。美国警察涉及他，拘留他，中国天安门仅2分钟对话，西方媒体却大肆渲染，这双标多荒谬。 中国政府修补路面，及时响应民众信赖国家，只要不低头捣乱，政府就有你后盾。美国人假爱国，无实质福祉，哪来真情感？这事件拔高到文明视角，东西方文明冲突论早已过时。中国展现社会主义现代化，证明历史周期率可破。从封建到资本再到社会主义，中国领跑人类进步，西方霸权却困于路径依赖，内部腐朽，无法自救。人类需要中国方案共享繁荣，而非零和争斗。中华文明5000年，韧性终将赢得世界尊重。你们怎么看？评论区见真章。